So I've got several OSI projects going on at the moment, and one of the projects is going to be this system where there's a backplane and a series of cards will go into it. And this is a GW OSI RAM card. So this is a modern design of a RAM card for the OSI system. And I'm going to use this one to start with, just because it makes some sense to me to start with this card. I want the reproduction cards to look a little more reproduction-y. But what we need to be able to do is get the pin headers installed so that the boards plug in, but I'd like to keep this nice and square and straight, and I'm hoping to be able to use my square here to do this work. So the idea, I think, is going to be that I'm going to install probably just the two middle jumpers to begin with, and I'll use the square to get the boards nice and square, and then I'll solder those in place, and I'll work my way down here as we go. I think that makes sense to me to do. So I need to be able to get these attached together so that I can put them on the board and into the backplane and make them work. And it's really hard to do that by hand, but in my myriad of stuff, I have this great little vise here for my little mini drill. And I think this is going to aid me really well here. I need to be able to push on those pins, and there's a notch there. I really think this is just going to slide in here. Well, okay, I need to flip it over. I want it as square as possible. Good, the width is really good. It captures all the pins. Let me get this where it seems to be somewhat straight, and we'll start to push it in and see what we get. And that actually makes it really easy to seat that. That's awesome. So let's do that one more time. So my assumption at this point is going to be that these are nice and square. They then hook on. Well, if I could get it to hook on there, they hook on here. Come on, fingers. One goes there and one will go here. So I guess I need to get those soldered in place. So as always, I don't have enough hands here. Blue tape, I just have the roll in hand. I don't know what I did with it. This is the component side. I'm pretty sure, yeah, this is the component side. So let's get a couple of these started. And of course, somebody may have a much better way of doing this already. I have not researched this deeply to see what other people have done. As we know, that doesn't tend to be something I do. I think with that, I can get the board where it's kind of sitting up flush. I think a couple of these will give me a fairly good height for that. Some solder. The tip cleaner. It's hiding over here. As you can see, I don't have enough room on the bench. I've got a large tip here, so I can get a lot of heat in a short period of time. And I'm going to hit here and here on the end. And I'm only going to do the ends for now on these two. And then I'm going to eyeball them for square. They do look square and flush to each other. I think they're fine. I'm sitting here wondering if I should go ahead and just do a third one at the same time, because I'll have to clamp from on high. Well, let's start with these two and see what I think. So let's go ahead and, I guess, solder the rest of the field in. I'm going to work in from the ends just that I'm not putting a ton of solder or a ton of heat into any one position on these, you know, next to each other. Actually, we're going to walk up the line now. I want to be as respectful of the nylon carriers as possible. They shouldn't melt, but as we discussed in the intro video, the pin headers themselves, the correct ones, the spec ones, are pretty rare. I have them here. They're round pin rather than square pin. That's what makes them, you know, unusual. I happened to find 80 of them from a guy in Poland and had them imported. It's the only ones I've been able to find of the correct ones. Ditch Key and Mouser both have the female connectors in stock, which is where I got these females from. But I also have some females that are vintage. You know, the white plastic has, you know, aged. It's got a color to it, a patina, and I will be using those ones directly on the OSI repro cards just to make them look a little more, you know, a little more, what's the term I want to use here, reproduction-ish. And there's a couple of things I need to consider here. I need to have room. So there's this seems upside down. Why does it seem upside down? There are a bunch of pull-up resistors, termination resistors that go along here. I don't know that it matters. These really aren't keyed in any way. I mean, rather, I guess what I'm saying is whether this is in this orientation or 180 degrees doesn't make any difference. So I think I'm safe to kind of set that up there like that. Let me get a couple of clamps. These are a couple of small woodworking clamps. I have put tape on the straight edge on the face of this T-square. It's a little Carpenter T-square, so that I don't mar up the PCBs here as I put stuff together. So that looks like it's pretty. Looks like it's going to be pretty squared. So the question becomes, oh, I see my thumb is in the way here. And to clear room, oh, this is of course going to be tricky. So it needs to slide out a little bit. It needs to slide out a little bit more. That actually looks pretty square right there. And now can I just square this up? It does look pretty square when it's tensioned up. So the question becomes, can I pull it in like so? So hopefully this is on camera. Hopefully the square is giving me a good 90-degree angle here. Hopefully, such that I can solder. I don't like the way those are centered. They're actually fine looking at them. So going to be a little bit tricky to do here on the side, but I just want to solder up the two outside ones. Yeah, this is a interesting spot to try to work in. Release the clamp. I need to solder the rest of those pins before I attempt to take this apart. I think I'm going to have to come back around and reflow these. This makes me wonder if OSI had like a rig they used, some kind of a jig to line these up if they factory build a system. Come on. Even with this big old tip, I'm struggling, partly because I can't see well. That one did not take any solder. Neither did that one. Hopefully this is on camera. I know the height here creates problems. And then what I can basically do is put the other outside connectors on, put the board down in place, and hopefully just solder the outside edges and have it, you know, be good enough. So I'm going to need to reflow those, but we've got a set of solder joints across there that are actually pretty lousy looking. Gonna clean some of those up a bit. I don't like the way that too tall. Yeah, the majority of those are okay. So will the board come off cleanly is the question. And it will. It walks right up out of there. Oh, I didn't think about how I'm going to press in the next set of pins. Can I still do this with the vise? Yes. Get that one seated. Next set of pins. This little hand vise is really useful. One of those tools that I think is a got to have. I got this on eBay for, I want to say, under $30. So it goes with the mini drill I've got. This card is then going to go here. And we do the same process to get things squared up. Except not like that. Oh. Everything has to be difficult to do. I know I'm a fan of saying that a lot, but it is the honest to God truth that everything has to be difficult. Even though the square is cast aluminum, I believe, it's still heavy enough, it's hard to deal with. I think it needs to slide in a little bit. A little tiny bit more. That's why I've got the tape on it, so I don't mar things. Trying to slide it around a bit. Now it needs to slide out. Slide out. That's pretty square there. Do I dare? Can I set this up? Get something with a decent height for it to sit on. I'm going to assume that the square and the clamps are holding it square. So let's go ahead and solder up these two. Oh, I've got the vise sitting on the lead for the soldering pencil here. Yeah, these are going to have to come back and be reflowed. I'm really not happy with them, but I'll do that once I've got better lighting. It looks pretty square. And better glasses for soldering. The glasses I've got are not very conducive to soldering. So, future Neil here. I've got some pictures here of the board. What we see right now is with the header soldered on the wrong side of the backplane. As you can see, I completely finished the soldering on this here and just got it wrong. Results in the board that's plugged in facing the wrong direction and being upside down, meaning any connectors that come off the top of the board would now be on the bottom of the board. It's just completely backwards. So, you know, I had to unsolder all those pins. I used my Hakko FR300 with the 1.6 millimeter tip. And luckily that tip fit over the pins and almost everybody unsoldered easily. There was a couple that were troublesome. In the little glass dish you see all the solder that was removed and the filter pads. I had to clean the tool multiple times. And like you can see there, I went through 3 filter pads as well. It was a lot of desoldering, but in the end the tool worked really well. I didn't lift any traces. You know, I didn't mess anything up, and the board cleaned up fairly well. So as we come into the next picture here, we'll see the board assembled correctly. All of the connectors are now on the correct side of the board and they're soldered in. I didn't go through all the heck of aligning like I did before with the square. I just put these in, got them to look straight and soldered them up. I did use a board to hold them in alignment. I think all of the stuff I did before was way too anal in the assembly process and didn't need to be done. These turned out absolutely fine. Just by, you know, inserting them into a board, sitting it down to the back plane on its side and soldering it up. So here we finally see the final assembly with everything in place, and this is correct. The board is the correct, the board is the correct way up. The back plane is the correct way up. Power and everything align well here. So I'm happy with this. Like I say, I didn't do all the manual alignment with the T-square like I did before, or not a T-square, with the Carpenter square. I just simply put the pins into the 4-edge connectors there on the blue system board, put it into the back plane, moved it until it looked nice and square, and just tack soldered and then fully soldered everything in place. So, made a mistake, recovered from the mistake. Luckily I had the right tools to recover. Again, it was my Hakko FR300. Worked well with the 1.6 millimeter tip. So I guess with this voiceover, I will see you in a future video.